So systems implementations can be successfully completed. And we're lucky enough today to be speaking with someone who has just undergone and overseen a system implementation in a family office and satisfied with the outcome. And as I believe we'll get into in a little bit more depth, would not change a thing, but would absolutely say that she and the team made the right decision. So I want to welcome our special guest today, Dominika Halka. And Dominika is decision maker and a leader at Evolve, which is a philanthropic organization with an endowment, and some of the activities that the endowment is engaged in are just amazing and world-changing, and what a vision the family has, and Dominika as a family member and also as someone interested in the activities ongoing at Evolve was responsible for overseeing the implementation that just happened, just completed earlier this year. So I want to say welcome, Dominika.
Thank you, John. Happy to be here and happy to have a conversation with you anytime.
Well, thanks for that. We're super glad to have you today too, and should be a good conversation because what you went through ended up right where you wanted it to end up. But that's not to say there weren't some bumps in the road and some back and forth and some ups and downs that required management and oversight. And so we'll be interested to hear about your experiences and the lessons you learned as you went through the process. But before we get into it, I would like to say that this video is sponsored by FundCount. And FundCount is a world-class technology platform that serves the wealth management industry and single-family offices especially. So thank you, FundCount, for supporting these conversations. So Dominika, let's start sort of at the beginning and maybe shed a little light or give us some context on why the family decided to implement a new system at Evolve.
Thank you, John. So at some point, 2-3 years ago, we've decided that we have outgrown our system for portfolio accounting and general ledger. And it coincided with certain external circumstance. The system that we were using at the time was acquired by another company, and the company decided to phase it out and to redirect their client base to their own product. So we could have just gone with this transition, but we decided this is the right time for us to step back and to assess our needs and to perhaps upgrade so that we can actually grow with the system.
So maybe give us some insight into the planning process that you underwent, some of the due diligence steps you took, and generally just how that process brought you to the decision to implement a new system.
Yeah, so we were very small at the time. We were still a startup. We had people wearing different hats. We didn't really have accounting function. So we've decided to hire a consultant with a lot of expertise in selection of systems, and worked with him for quite some time with a very specific user requirement that we compiled, and he produced a short list of 4. We interviewed all 4 and did demo, and then ended up choosing fund count. But I just want to emphasize this was a very deep process, and I believe that we did the right thing because we never regretted our decision.
Well, that's great news to hear that the end result of your process was a successful implementation. And so I'm just wondering how close did you come at the end of it all to your original budget, your original thinking around the timeline, and also business requirements?
So I would tell you that out of the three aspects, speed, quality, and cost, we really emphasized cost and quality because we felt that we are not in rush, we can take some time. So we definitely came very close in terms of cost and quality, but we didn't come close in terms of speed, which again was not a major consideration, but we certainly took way longer than I would expect. I probably thought that the implementation would take about a year. It took more than that. And cost-wise, I think we stayed within the budget. We had a very detailed plan from fund count, and I don't think we exceeded the cost. And also in terms of quality, I have to say that we are very, very satisfied with the system. We would not change anything. And in fact, it actually, it's actually better than expected. I would say that we are thrilled with the result at the end.
Well, that's all very high praise, and I'd like to dig in a little bit to the potentially some of the reasons why the project implementation took longer than you expected, and did that have any relationship to your own internal team, your own internal resources that you were able to dedicate to the project implementation, or were there other factors that came into play?
Certainly, I think the main reason was that we were under-resourced. We had one person that we hired with specific expertise in system implementation, so that was right. But one person was just not sufficient internally to drive this implementation. We try to supplement with external consultants, and some of them, like yourself, were very, very important and instrumental in moving it forward. But we also had some less successful experiences when we realized that when a consultant says that they specialize in implementation of similar systems, it's not enough, because fund count is still so specific that, let's say, experience implementing SER Archway would not translate 100% to implementation of fund count. So it was just not cost and time efficient. They also had to come to our internal staff with any kind of question, which ended up being more of a burden than support for them. So if I had to do it again, I would probably have at least two people internally to drive the implementation. And if I had to reach out externally for support, I would reach out to fund count itself, because those people really know the system. And once we requested more support, it started moving things much more efficiently. So that would be my comment on internal resources versus external resources and mix of resourcing.
Yeah, and I appreciate your comment about the external resources, whether they be consulting, third-party consultants, or they be consulting team members from the vendor, in this case, Fund Count. And it sounds to me like you found the consulting team at Fund Count to be well equipped to answer your questions and to give you guidance during the implementation. Is that a fair statement?
That's a very fair statement, yes. I think we try to look elsewhere, and it was definitely not the right move. We should have just realized right from the start that FundCount is in best position to supplement our internal resources.
Was there any specific instance or event or type of activity that you were trying to implement from your existing portfolio, let's say, into the system that caused maybe more time and effort than you might have expected?
Yes, I think we had some issues like that, but the main factor, I think, would be that we decided to cut off data from the old system a little prematurely because we did not import historical data. We decided to close books on some date for the old system and preserve it and make sure we have access, and then start FundCount fresh without going into this, at least for the time being, without going into historical data. And we decided on the cutoff before we actually had final agreement with FundCount. And because of certain financial negotiations, it delayed the start of implementation significantly. And then we were, kind of against the time, going against the time. So the data was already accumulating, and we still did not go live. We did not implement. So that was a little challenging, especially for the person in charge of implementation, that she already had this building up of data. So it felt like her job, instead of progressing, was becoming bigger and bigger. So I regret not waiting until we actually had the agreement in place and were ready to go, and only then cutting off the old system.
Yeah. So if I understand you correctly, what happened was you decided that you would stop inputting data into the old system effective with a certain month-end close or quarter-end close, and with the expectation that you could enter the beginning balances into the new system and then just proceed with transaction activity going forward. But what happened was through some, I guess, externalities, let's call them, whatever, we didn't actually get, or you weren't able to actually get the input of the data into the new system as fast as you originally planned when you cut off the data in the old system. So it did create sort of a tsunami of data. Every month that went by, there was more and more data that needed to be input and to be reconciled, and so that sort of added to the burden, didn't it, on your internal resources, and made it much more difficult to feel like you could get ahead of this tsunami wave, right?
Yes, but at the end, it comes to the same issue of being under-resourced, right? Because I thought one person will be enough and it will go very fast, then I was pretty relaxed about taking another month or two to complete the negotiations with FundCount. So if we had realized ahead of time that we needed more resources, maybe that would also affect my attitude towards when to start the implementation.
That is one big lesson that you learned in this implementation, was to make sure that you've got your own internal team properly staffed and ready to go to work. How did you handle the ongoing day-to-day work alongside of the systems implementation? Did you have sort of the same people doing day-to-day as working on the implementation?
No, the person who was in charge of implementation focused just on that. And in fact, she was really she had a specialized skill in system implementation. We had other people because we kept hiring. So we had another system being implemented in parallel that was handled by other people, different people. but it went in parallel. So I think in terms of the burden of the organization, it was more than just fund count, but in terms of workload on this particular person, that was not affecting her.
Dominica, any other lessons that you want to share with us that came out of this experience that you'll use the next time you go into an implementation effort, whether it's on a system or another type of business activity?
First, I want to say how we love the system, because I don't know if I expressed it enough. It's an incredibly robust system, very easy to enter data. In fact, anybody can enter data, and after some relatively short training, so it's very flexible in that sense. Has massive reporting abilities that we are putting to full use. And I will even tell you an anecdote that towards the end of implementation, we were hiring a CFO, and we were able to attract a very, very skilled individual who told me that the fact that we had fund count almost fully operational at that time was actually a factor in his decision making to take on this role.
Look, this brings to a close our discussion with Dominika Halka, who is a family member at Evolve, a philanthropic organization with an endowment. And Dominika, I just want to say thank you very much for joining us today and sharing the lessons you've learned during this system implementation. So this is John Carroll, your host, and saying thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.